It is 6:09. We're gonna call this meeting to order. We have 2 out of the 5 council members present and 5 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, sorry.
Well,
Out
the planning board, sir.
of the planning board present, as well as myself and Jeff. Take it away.
All right. I'll just start by saying, Paul suggested this meeting, and I think, it's a great idea to have better communication. Between the planning board and the town council. Sometimes it's been great, sometimes it hasn't. We have a new planner. I think that will solve some of the issues maybe around what's going on. But sometimes it feels like the planning board puts a lot of work and time and energy into zoning amendments. Of a certain nature, and that they get passed on to the town council to. Approve or disapprove, and it's a bit of a surprise to them, and I think we wanna not have things work that way, it shouldn't be a surprise. They have a lot going on and a lot of work to do, and so it's not on them to have to watch every planning board meeting either. But sporadic workshops, or giving them a heads up, or making sure I think that's a great job, making sure they know what we're up to. And Paul also now acting sort of as the liaison between the 2 groups. Will do a lot in, making sure that the town council sees things come and can weigh in maybe before we even it gets to them. So that was my opening song. You go. Glasnost.
I cannot do that.
Please.
No, maybe
Go ahead.
I think, yeah, no, I mean, that was a good summary here, chief. I think, yeah, there's a lot going on. We all know we have a comp plan. We need to amend it. We have proposed to amend it. LD 1829 was passed a couple of years ago, which would significantly increase the amount of housing that we need to prepare for potentially. We've been trying to adjust to that. The planning board was instructed, I think, back in February or so to shrink our prior growth area, which they took on.
No, I'm gonna step in. We weren't told to shrink it. We were told to reevaluate.
Okay.
The idea wasn't just to sort of make it difficult to put in more housing and development. The point was to sort of reevaluate how we looked at it in terms of new density. Just to be clear. Sorry.
Which has resulted in a shrinkage of it.
Well,
But in any case, we can talk about that.
we actually added to all.
I think, well, we can. And you know, I do think it's critically important that we start talking about these jointly. It's a huge issue. South Berwick has had a very modest amount of growth over the years. I think people feel that it's been rapid growth, but it really hasn't. There's other towns surrounding us throughout York County, which I have a lot of history with, which are growing much faster than we do. And I think we need to start preparing for that eventuality through looking at our infrastructure, water. Thank you for coming tonight. Right, and sewer and other things. And I think we just got to get to it. So, and we have a new planner, so he's got a lot on his plate. And I think Jeff, you prepared a PowerPoint on where we're at.
I did, and I will see how this shared screen works. I'm not in the Zoom browser, so it's like that thumbs up. Thank you, council and planning board. It's great to be here. I'm 2 weeks and 1 day in, and I'm enjoying it. It's a lot of projects that my predecessor DiCarlo started. So part of it has been onboarding, getting my head around the status of these projects. But a lot of good stuff going on, as well as kind of mentioned by Paul, challenges, LE 1829. How can we prepare for those growth eventualities that are coming? So you guys have all talked about and held a public hearing on this amendment. This map shows the new growth area. A couple weeks ago, we got a letter from the state saying, well, we have one more inconsistency item for you to address. It's related to the proposed growth area to the south, so the 236 Pumpkin Town growth area needing to, since it overlaps heavily with New England cottontail habitat. They did mention northern black racer and Blandy's turtle as well. They felt that the plan should include language about how those critical natural resources very simple, get it done within the next few weeks, and then turn into the actual work of ordinance amendments for 18 months.
And hey, Paul, I'll just add that, it got sent to the state because we had a deadline. And the incredibly tight schedule that Carl had put together meant that it had to be sort of concurrent, right, that we had to work on it parallel with the state was doing it in order to make that July 1st approval by then, and there was no reason not to, I mean, if we had to go back and then make changes because town council wanted changes, that seemed to be easier than having to wait months and months for their review. That's why, but we don't have to do that now. So.
Yeah, I think at our last joint meeting workshop related to this, when they were just sort of specifically looking at the growth map, it was sort of, so I don't probably watched it, but before you were there, decided to wait until you got on board and were able to wrap your head around it. And, I know obviously there's only 2 of us counselors here today, so I personally can't speak for them. I know my opinion is that we should take some more time to look at it and roll in anything else related to 1829, 2173 that we can or will want to do instead of going through this process again. Whenever it does get submitted to the state, I think it ought to come through the council first.
Jeff, I have a question. You know, we start referring to, LD 1829 or any of the other legislative pieces in our comp plan. Things happen. The next group gets together in Augusta and rescinds, revises, changes. Does that mean we have to go back and revisit all the references we have in our documents to continue to be in line with that? Versus if we understand that those rules and regs are out there and our comp plan is in place to address the potential impact that would have on our, on our community, how we want to try to position ourselves going forward, then we're not tied specifically to those, and it doesn't even give the appearance that what we're trying to do is figure out a way to work around those. We're just really focused on what's right for the town and with an understanding that those things are out there.
And that's why I think that leads to the fact that you don't have to kind of do too much editing line by line of, chapter by chapter of the comp plan. Just splice it in, when, things change, a comp plan is meant to be that 10-year blueprint. And if you try and change it with every little legislative policy change that comes on, it'll just be a very deepest town. So, yeah, so that's like, for not needing much on 1829, or if you do, maybe have kind of a separate call out on 1829 in the comp plan text, rather than trying to edit, many different references in the comp plan.
Sure.
I
So I just want to clarify, I wouldn't mean to like tailor it specifically to those, just knowing that those 2 are, out there right now.
I honestly don't feel next July sounds like a long time away, but I think with the work that we need to do with 1829, I don't think it's that far away. So I would be hesitant. My own feeling is the land use section of the comp plan is the most important part. It's usually the only thing the state really dives into. And I think that that's critical that if you and the planning board can just, I would like to see an 1829 analysis and of some sort. I think sort of done that over the work over the last few months. It's just, it wasn't altogether clear to me where, how that, where it was, there were some changes made, but, I guess if Jeff, if you had it with the planning board, the opportunity to just sort of highlight that, I think that would be helpful with people.
I think we're sort of 80% there, and we sort of came to a grinding halt, and, especially on the growth area stuff, there's a few maybe outstanding things, so really. We're close, and also we've got now feedback from the state. But, I think putting together something, in fact, even for the planning board to sort of better understand. Here are the things that really affects, and here's how we're thinking about it, and here's how DeCarlo did a lot of sort of educational groundwork. Around making us understand, like, sort of the big picture of density and how you think about each area of town. Rural, sort of semi-suburban and downtown, and how you think about them differently, but it's all the sort of same chart in a way. Was really important, and it's a lot of great groundwork, and we began the nitty gritty, and I know Jeff has probably put together by now a spreadsheet of all the amendments we've been working on that are related to it. So, I'm sure we'll come up with something that'll sort of lay it out a little bit more clearly for everyone, that.
This would be the land use amendments.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few that are really sort of obvious, right, about multifamily housing. Or density, and there's some that really aren't, like, there's. Part of allowing more density downtown to us was a trade-off in protecting R4 and R5, we felt like. We really heard loud and clear, people like our rural areas, but as I do. And we want those protected, and that means we don't want suburban sprawl, we feel like it's a terrible way to build, and bad for the environment. And so we actually made it harder to do that, we made, you cannot give a waiver for a 600-foot driveway, but that was one thing I was doing. Like, we're allowed to give a waiver, and God knows we give them away like candy, because we're not really clear sometimes why we have it. But, I think are gonna take away that right, that you can come in, which will basically mean you can't just, like, buy 100 acres and put in 400 single family houses there, right? Because you can't put in a road, that goes that deeply into the site. So there's ways to say, this is how we want you to do development in R4, R5. That is the response to 1829, and part of it is preserving those areas of town. So those were a lot of amendments were related to that.
And to follow on with that, then when you focus on the in-town areas and knowing that those were, the greatest potential for increased density. We went out, did surveys of the various neighborhoods, looked architecturally at what's going on in those, and we're trying to establish standards so that anything that were to be added in those, downtown areas wouldn't come in and take over and destroy the ambiance of that, particular neighborhood. So that's part and parcel.
Yeah, that's totally.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, wait, just one, this is a big question, but are you, you see putting all that together in a single package, 1829, because everything is just not related to 1829, I think you guys just described, everything else.
Yeah.
So are we looking at an entire package for adoption prior to next July? Is that, which includes like dealing with rural areas and, and what you guys just suggested about, cul-de-sacs and all those sorts of things? Or are we dealing with 1829 and the density issues,
Well,
or everything?
I would say, there's a lot of the work we've done, and a lot of the big work we've done is related to 1829 and also the new legislation 2173. And then there's some small stuff that came up. Somebody came in and said, I really think we should have bigger ADUs, and we talked about it, and that has nothing to do, maybe it'll encourage more ADUs, you can say it's more density, but. That was separate from it, and there's a bunch of tweaking we've done it, and I think all of us would like to look at the zoning ordinance in general, and. It sort of has needed an overhaul for a long time, and we're sort of dedicated to getting that done, but there is, Paul, to answer your question, yes, a big piece of it. Was around that, and the parts of like protecting R4 and R5 are directly related to 1829.
Yeah.
In that we want to see smart growth, we want to see density downtown. We wanna see where it's gonna go. We want it to be on town water and sewer. That is smart, but that's how it's supposed to go. That's how you're supposed to do it.
And that's where LD 2173 gave people a side to lead. And in a lot of ways, because the way LD 1829 was worded, it left open the door for those. Huge amount of rural suburban sprawl, and LD 2173 modified the definition of a sewer system to ensure that.
Can you clarify exactly how it's modified it? Is it our quasi municipal? Sewer systems not included anymore or?
Yeah, so they basically said, the modification essentially removed. Combined septic system, the ability to essentially call a combined septic system a sewer system that then qualify your development for the density increases.
Okay.
So, and the minimum lot size law for septic systems remains in effect, so that's another guard against. LD 1829 kind of bowling over municipalities and their rural shows. But it's still important to move forward with those, I think, for additional protection from the rodents. But I think to your point, one way you could sequence it is, you could first focus on the really small technical amendments to LD 1829, get those out of the way. Things like, they delved into some ADUs have to be sprinkled, some don't. So stuff like that, to the definition of an ADU, if you wanna sync the definition with the state definition, you don't have to. But there are a number of different technical things that could be done relatively quickly while we're kind of working on the more intensive, more difficult, longer things that we have a year or almost 11 months to get done. So you can do those early, and then the comprehensive plan amendment can come next, and then the more intensive changes to the ordinance could occur. In 2027, not to say we need to start working on it now, because it's very important. We have them, the Stockton surveys, previous discussions we had, DiCarlo had the planning for change meetings to been prepared in the community, all that's good groundwork. But I think in terms of what crosses the finish line, you could do that, the kind of minor technical amendments, the comp plan, amendment, and then the dealing with the density mandates of 225.
And I guess one question, since this is sort of a very generic kind of meeting we're having, we're not gonna get into a lot of this stuff. I guess one question is, how would the town council then really, I mean, Sam and Paul, you're here, how do you wanna have this not be a surprise? Do you wanna have us, do you want us just to do our work, the planning board, and then Jeff will sort of give you a PowerPoint brief you on what we're working on, what's coming down the pipe? You wanna meet and have another workshop where we actually, maybe we're gonna some of it together? I mean, I feel like it's sort of our charge, or we're gonna make a recommendation to you. But then again, we don't wanna spend all this time on stuff, and then you're gonna say, oh, what are you doing? We had no idea. So,
My personal opinion is, as your primary role being a reviewing authority of the municipality, it would be the town council's job, and perhaps, and I think it would then be to sort of charge you with the extra task of making these ordinance or working on it, sort of, you know what I mean? And like,
I'm sorry, I just wanna figure out how we do it. in a
Yeah,
way that-
I'm getting to it.
Okay, sorry, okay.
So having only been here since November, I'm not sure if that sort of charge has been made yet of you all to do A, B, C, D.
That's what we do.
And then that would sort of, okay, you've already started it, obviously. That, in my opinion, would be the sort of backfilling that first step to then give you guys a official order, for lack of a better term. And then, periodic review of the progress, whether it's summaries or just comes to a council meeting and says, this is this is where they're at, like, this is. These are getting closer to being ready for review. Then maybe at that point, we have another, when they're closer, we have a joint workshop like this, so we can. Sort of do a consensus before it goes to public hearing or something, you know? And yeah, this is spitting out loud, you know?
I mean, the planning board is supposed to plan, that is what.
Well, of course, and there, but
Yeah,
I think it, with, as time allows, you know, so we wanna make sure that as the, in my opinion, the council having the authority over the planning board needs to direct them beyond their municipal review authority to engage in the ordinance amendment activities.
Oh,
To ensure that they're in line with the will of the council. Being the final authority. to
so
adopt.
we. I mean, for that's what the planning board does, we look at the ordinance, we review it. Citizens always make suggestions about changes they'd like to see. We had a nice couple come in who have a home occupation, they're not allowed to sign, we think having a sign downtown actually makes a lot of sense, and we're gonna put. We're gonna change the home occupancy to allow for signage on certain streets right downtown, but you know, like that was initiated by someone else. But we thought about it, we talked about it, and it seemed like a great idea, so a lot of it comes that way. Sometimes, you know, things like legislation happens that then makes us sort of review everything. And also, you know, sometimes you just have to do an overhaul, which is always feel a little piecemeal, it hasn't been done, I think, in many years. And we did hire a company who was supposed to get back to us, and pick out conflicts, and they do a really basic scrub, and it apparently is not very satisfying.
I can just, so.
Do you know where that is?
Yeah.
Anyway, so with that,
Yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah, well,
You have more experience here.
Well, you know, a couple things. You know, I do think we need a periodic update. I don't wanna overly bureaucratic this. I think, you know.
I apologize if I came off that way.
No, and.
Yeah, I know, I think if things are gonna be coming to us, the council, not, you know, the council as the approving authority, it needs to be, you know, it makes sense, like we're all saying. We're on the same
we go
page.
through our process, we have discussions, we review
Yeah.
things, we have a public hearing, we make a recommendation to you, you guys vote on it, and you enact legislation, that's pretty much the whole deal.
I do think. Having periodic updates, Jeff, I don't wanna drag them every town council meeting that we have. Cause I don't have to do, just even, you know, written, every month or whatever, bi-monthly, updates. You know, I will say this, though, I think, and I'm not sure where you all were going, but, you know, I just got the feeling you were moving towards a form-based code. I'm not sure if that was like legitimized or not, if that's what you were proposing to do. But that was a pretty significant change in the way we do zoning in South Florida. And I don't think this town council, and I'm not, as a lifelong planner, I'm not even familiar with that greatly, how that works. I think it can work, it's a great concept. But that would be a really significant change for the way we do work, the way the planning board works in South Florida. And I'm not saying it's a bad idea, actually, I think that there's some really good aspects to it. But I think, you know, my concern, as I was watching what was going on, was that this was gonna be put in front of the council, and we'd be like, oh my God, holy mackerel. You know, this is really, you know, technical stuff, and it is, which isn't to say it's not good. So I do think that's just you know, a way to say that the more updates, the better. They don't need to be verbal. They can just, you know, as long as we can just keep track of where you guys are at, and that would be great. So we're just like, there are no surprises.
We don't want.
Just quickly, a couple other things. Yeah, so the code update, which, believe it or not, in my prior life, when I was consulting for the town for like a month or two, the code company, you know, that their charge was to update our code. And they gave us, just for everybody here, probably a list of, you know, a lot of that update was just things that were related to you know, ordinance, you know, state laws that had expired that were still in our code, you know, grammatical stuff, you know, fines and other things that hadn't been updated in like 30 or 40 years, just the whole mess of like very technical things. The town manager and I sort of went through those, we picked out the ones that were just cut and dry, like, let's change those, so that was part of it, there was a whole host of other stuff which they brought up. Which was more detailed, I mean, there was things related to shoreland zoning. Timber harvesting regulations that were not in compliance with the way the state laws read. That we were, at the time, I don't think anybody was ready, and including you folks, to jump in on, 40 or 50 different zoning amendments. That we needed to update, we deferred all of that. So right now, basically what we have from the code company is a sort of a technical document, which I don't know if Jeff's had a chance to look at it yet or not. Which is very generic, things that need to be changed, dealing with inconsistencies and whatever. And then probably 100 questions that are more substantive in nature related to, again, shoreline zoning and stormwater and other things, which we need the expertise of the planner, we need the expertise of the planning board, and we need the code officer. Amongst other things, so that is all sort of sitting
Here, can we get a copy of that?
I wish I could tell you the easiest way to get a copy of it, you need to log on to the to this code company website. Which is,
I'm gonna rely on
I need to,
to download it.
I think you're asking the wrong person. I think,
That's fine.
I would ask Jen
For a long
or
time,
Jeff.
like,
Yeah.
as technical as it, I'd love to take a look at it.
Okay. So,
And start to work out stuff.
I think that's a timing issue, which I'm more than happy to dump on Jeff's plate. Do we, we could probably address all those technical issues, soon, just get those out, right? And then leave all the other stuff for later,
And I think that kind of along the way that you broke it down, right, I mean, there's a way that we can attack this problem. As far as the growth zone stuff, which, we've had a couple of joint ones, it sounds like we do need some, tweaks with the wildlife. Meet the state's requirements, but that one is pretty close to, it's been pretty well done, that, it wouldn't necessarily take a lot of heavy looking to get that aspect of stuff, but fine. We've got our technical items that need to be fixed, which are gonna be, more cut and dry, okay, it's need to come in compliance with state law, we can knock those out. But the thing I really wanna make sure is, you were mentioning about the form-based code. Because we are looking at, since we have these new density requirements that could significantly change the nature and the feel of a lot of our downtown neighborhoods in the growth area. In putting some of those form-based code, so that, someone's not coming in and putting in a 32 unit condo. That's just not at all inconsistent with what our downtown looks and feels like right now. That it could be more consistent with the neighborhood feels. And, that being obviously a longer and more involved part. But we, would certainly want to make sure that town council is on board with that before we put in all the work. So,
I guess that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
It's like,
So that,
I apologize to I forget whomever called it micromanaging, that's clearly not my intent, it's to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah, no, we don't, Aaron's right, we don't wanna do the, we've done work on a few things that have sort of disappeared.
Yeah,
Ether and never, and I like, what happened to them, and, it'd be great to, just have better communication, and I think Jeff is gonna do that, and quite frankly, I'm gonna rely on Jeff to sort of direct what we do, when and how, he's got a very long list of stuff on his plate. And I think he probably, has a pretty good idea of the logic of, like, you have to do this first, because it's gonna affect that kind of thing. So, I'm most interested in letting him take the lead and not us to see how it goes.
Well, it all came into play when DeCarlo had us take over the synoptic surveys and a lot of that because the town council couldn't do it. So that's where it all came into our court, and we put a lot of volunteer time into that,
for sure, yeah,
Monday through Friday.
Yes.
Stuff.
no, I appreciate all your work at it, I'm sorry if it was perceived otherwise, yeah. We gotta, I think the intent here is to keep everyone more in the loop, so we don't get on, don't get on that.
No, I just think
Back
also
road.
like there's a big gap between our planners with Jeff between DeCarlo and us. So there was a lot of information That was just kind of floating out there, then we haven't really had to have a meeting of the minds, because really.
Well, and,
Yeah.
and a reminder, DeCarlo also is part-time doing economic development.
Yeah.
Jobs is really more of a planner himself, and, it's going to be, like, we'll have him full-time focusing on that, I think. You know,
Real quick question, Jeff. You had said, you do certain things now, you do certain things, before July of next year, and then there's some things we can do after July. I was of the impression that if we're looking at putting changes into, requirements, say for downtown, looking at the surveys we did and applying those to establish setback requirements, design requirements, whatever we're gonna do. If we don't put that in place prior to July of next year, are we going to be running afoul of 1829 or any subsequent legislation, because that's in place, allowing certain densities, and now we're looking to apply, requirements that would reduce essentially that, the law comes in and says you can put 8 units per acre, and we put some design requirements in that are not gonna allow that. Are we gonna be able to do that after July?
If I implied that or said that, I didn't mean it. Yes, July 1st is the deadline, both for the legal change that we have to make for LD 1829. And for any other dimensional standards that you wanna put in place to protect against the new densities. Or protect the character against the new density allowances. And that's a good point, like. LD 1829/2173 is a lot size and area per dwelling unit law. It is agnostic on all of the other dimensional standards, so that's both a challenge and an opportunity. Because you could use those other dimensional standards as controls for the type of development you want to see. And in Elliott, we did form-based code in the new mixed use zone on 236. And we feel like we felt there that we have the right tools in place to control the form of development so that it looks nice, walkable little nodes emerge, street, well organized streetscapes emerge, and it's not just kind of unorganized development. So, but yeah, it takes a lot of work, and so we used a HOP grant to hire an expert consultant on form-based code. And that was just for one zone part of one new zoning district, so it is a lot of work, but if you wanna go that route, you can do that. There's gradients too. I did check in with DeCarlo today in advance of this meeting. And we had a really good discussion, and he said that it doesn't need to be an intensive form-based code, it can be a very light form-based code, so you can be more intense or less intense.
Oh, I never realized it wasn't all or nothing, like I thought your whole town had to go that way, or it sounds like in LA, you only a piece of your town like that.
Yeah, just one zoning
Oh.
district.
That's interesting, I didn't know you could do that, okay, that's news to me, great, that's good to hear. Yeah,
Kind of circle back to an early, topic in this meeting, when we were talking about wildlife. And the state's, concern about what are we doing, within our comprehensive plan to address these wildlife habitats, and it's been brought up, these things change, so it's very difficult, but yet the state has information, they know what's out there, at least, snapshot of today. And to also address Hershey's point, you get these, planning proposals brought before our board, and it always seems like it's an afterthought or a last minute thing to address the environmental issues. We have requirements in the process where, you have to get a sign off from the fire chief, you gotta get a sign off, Could we just modify the process for reviewing and approving these major site plans to include that they have to get 100% sign off from, the environmental and wildlife people? And any mitigation that needs to be addressed is then borne by the developer. And, it's whatever's in place at the time, and you've got the experts at the state level that are reviewing it.
Well, and also we even had conditions of approval which I think still say,
Yeah.
well, yeah, they're gone. Nobody, we haven't really monitored them well. Nobody's fault, I think, really just they're, they're in there. And they get forgotten. And sometimes I think one of them was you have to get a letter from Inland Fish and
Yeah.
Wildlife, and that. You shouldn't make that, you shouldn't be able to make that a condition. You should have all that paperwork and all those things done
Approved
before you're, that's our mistake. I think we should have did that, so.
But is that a way we could address the state's concerns about, the change in the growth plan and, what we're looking to increase and the potential impacts to the habitats there?
We could, I mean, they could potentially see that as meeting that third bullet point there about perform surveys prior to development. If our comp plan merely recommends that our process be revised, to include that as a step. Presumably mainly we're talking about greenfield developments. We probably want to exempt developments that aren't making any physical changes or applications that are.
Yeah.
Or building on already.
And also, once again, the comp plan is our guideline and our master plan, but we have to then enact zoning.
Yeah.
In order to reflect what the comp plan is asking us to do. So just putting that in the comp plan from Inland Fish and Wildlife won't accomplish much unless we put it in the ordinance somehow. So with, remember, this is a two-step process.
I could do that, so maintain integrity of power line, shrub, open habitat, yes or no, good or bad.
Well, what about the Eastern
Yeah, the
Trail?
Eastern
That's
Trail,
supposed to be-
We could word it, basically. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, you can please go ahead.
We could word it basically say, try and accomplish both priorities, because the Eastern Trail is only gonna be 10 feet wide. And it might be a kind of compatible, multiple environmental benefit thing where, the Eastern Trail could, potentially be located there, but there could be some environmental mitigation or additional shrub plantings that could help the content.
Yeah, this is a big discussion about how we do this, but I would like somebody with expertise to say to me. Yes, you can definitely put a trail there and here's what we'll have to do to mitigate, or no, a trail will wreck everything there and it's just not a great place for it, and we'll have to decide what we're gonna do. But I know we've gone down this path, so to speak, and I think it's a great place and a great use of that corridor, but also. Now there's this competing thing that isn't thinking about that and to make sure. I don't know, we get the right information about it before. So I don't know what to say about that.
Well, I mean, if it's gonna be a big stretch of Eastern Trail, it'll probably be built with either state or federal funds. Especially with built with federal funds, you're gonna have environmental review. Very good. Preliminary engineering, so.
It's true, but once it's there.
Yeah, well, but also like having trees and shrubs around your trail, mutually beneficial for both, right? Both the wildlife and for
That's for bunnies. Bunnies just
Yeah.
want things.
I'd like to get away from bunnies for a minute.
Oh. Oh.
I don't like bunnies. No, I love bunnies. A couple of things well, first of all, we established a comprehensive plan implementation committee.
Excuse me, this conference plan.
We established a comprehensive plan implementation committee and we appointed people to a comprehensive plan implementation. Committee.
Oh, this is called that, okay.
Okay, we had a comprehensive plan committee who developed the 24 plan.
Right.
Right, and then we established comprehensive plan implementation committee.
I don't know.
Do you remember?
I joined like 3 years ago, but there was very few members.
Right,
That was probably 2024 year.
oh, right, but then I thought we.
Yeah, there was a call.
appointed-
There was a call out for the Downtown Revitalization Advisory Committee and the Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee. I believe we got
3 members.
there is 3.
It was Maya.
Maya, Christie, Woods, and Nora.
Yeah, Laura.
Yeah, we had 3
And Laura has
And-
moved to a different.
committee.
Laura is resigned from that.
Right, so, I just raised that. Because I don't like setting up committees and then not having them understand what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have absolutely no guidance. I have no understanding of what our mission is, other than the fact that we are advisory in nature. But honestly, this has been a very challenging situation to understand what our role is, what relevance we have, how we can assist.
Right.
Et cetera.
I just want to point that I wish I could help you right now. I don't really have an answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
And,
very uninformed
Right,
about everything.
and now you only have two members, but I think the intent originally was before 1829 came around,
Yes,
was that you would just sort of meet quarterly, work with the planner, talk about how things were going as far as the implementation of the comprehensive plan, like all, 50 pages of ideas and recommendations that
yes,
are in there.
we never even received that amount. You've given me more structure in the last sentence than I had previously. So no,
Okay,
the only thing, when I was, confirmed by the town council, John James said, we want you to hold us accountable to implementing the plan. We want you to understand the plan and remind us that it exists. So that was my guidance. I never had enough members to actually get active. Then 1829 came through, blew everything up, and since then I've just been sort of like, what's happening?
Well, I think it'd be great to have the committee start meeting quarterly.
Quarterly,
One more.
okay, that's good, quarterly,
I'd be happy to be the staff contact for that.
okay.
There's a lot in the comp plan, so stay away from the potential LD 1829 blocks things and focus on other areas. Because presumably, unless I'm wrong, this committee is charged with seeing what can be prioritized for implementation across the different topics.
Well, and I think the revitalization committee is also confusing in the sense that what's in the comp plan, like, who's responsible for that? Like, some of it is traffic related and downtown related. So is that something we say, don't forget about it? Or is that the revitalization committee? All of that I have no understanding of either.
I think the history of this mine is that often towns do comp plans, and God knows, we had one that was 23 years old or something. And, they sit on a shelf and they get dusty and nobody really enacts all these great ideas of where people want things to go. And you
Right.
are sort of the watchdog of that, right? You are the overseer of that. And so let's get you some more members. However that looks, I don't know, can we get like a call out, something on the what is it, not Facebook, as a town website? Can we recruit some people? Can you help, we'll help you recruit some people? And then, maybe you guys should meet and come up with your committee should meet and come up with some plan of how you are going to look at the priorities, and if there are other.
1829 aside, is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I mean,
Is that would be a little more manageable than trying to grapple with something that we have no training background or involvement with.
Well, I gotta say, the only thing changing in the comp plan that is related to 1829, at least in the moment and that we've been through, is reforming the growth area. That's it. And there's a paragraph, I think, that's rewritten, and we have looked at the growth area and we've come up with what we think is sort of at least, we're almost there.
Is that somewhere that's, like, it would be good to read that and at least wrap my head around that.
This was from Mark, this is the changes we want.
I think. The title of the committee is the implementation committee, which means there's already an approved comprehensive plan. I think. The idea would be that once the comp plan and once the growth area is amended. Then, as the planning board is working on changes to zoning and other things, I would suggest that you guys should be somewhat involved with that. I don't know what that would look like. Advisory, go to the meetings, I don't know. There's certainly a ton of other stuff in the comprehensive. We just focus on like stuff in the comprehensive plan, which is related to zoning and just stuff. But there's also a whole bunch of other things in there,
Yeah.
which are laid out, and I think you've highlighted some of those, which are related to traffic and signage.
Yeah.
Conservation work and
Yeah.
a whole bunch of other things. That nobody tracks
Yeah.
really, and the planner's too busy is gonna be with 1829, so I do think that there's a role. And.
And does anyone have any attention span for that while we're dealing with 1829? Like, it sort of felt like the message I got was, let's just deal with 1829 and then pick back up with the rest of it
Well,
later.
like, a lot of it is, I would say a lot of this nitty gritty stuff about 8 to 29 might not be the big picture that the comp plan looks at, right? It's the technical stuff, you know, that's not UMass, that's not the comp plan. That's just our building ordinance. And you know, I mean, DeCarlo had a few workshops. I know you came once or twice. It's not like we're secretive, we're happy to invite and have the implementation committee.
Yeah.
Come to any planning board meeting and let you know, I mean, Pat comes when we remember to invite her if we're doing anything related to conservation. So, you know, it's not, but I think you're right in that it's confusing that there are a bunch of other town boards, commissions, committees that all are picking off pieces that are probably part of the comp plan that are working on stuff. And so I see you as I'm looking at all the big picture. And maybe it means you're gonna, you know, connect with each of them, you know, over time, bit by bit, to see if they're going over the stuff that you think has to move forward.
So
That's at least what, I don't know, does that make sense?
I guess I would wanna know who are those groups and I miss like,
Right.
who do I have to connect with?
I would, at the risk of overstepping my boundaries here, I would suggest that yes, DeCarlo was proposed to be working with that committee. It just never happened because
Yeah.
the 1829 happened. I don't know. I would suggest the appropriate person is Jeff, or you can talk to Jen and Jeff or Jen.
Or other committees, I mean, other.
But yeah, but I think what you said, Rishi, is correct. I mean, I think there's a whole bunch of committees. I don't know whether they're following the comprehensive plan or not. I mean, I don't know whether they're reading the comprehensive plan and said, oh, look what the comprehensive plan says. This is something we should be working on. I have
So I'm
no
gonna
idea.
set a meeting, Jeff, and go from there.
Yeah, cause I think your committee could be useful as not having to, almost not having to worry about all of the nitty gritty of what the other committees are, like the planning board and the council are really doing, but starting with the actual plan document and going through the policies and strategies and picking out ones that you feel are important to be implemented in the short term.
Yeah.
And then kind of distributing those recommendations to the other bodies. And almost giving them a charge, amongst all the other stuff. So that you guys are looking at the comp plan with clear heads while the planner and the folks up here, have to worry about the LD 1829.
Okay,
And then I think that would be a good, my suggested flow of communication.
that's helpful, yeah.
I think that makes sense, especially with how that section of the plan's laid out, yeah.
And can I, hold on, Brad, you can, come on up for a second, I'm okay with that, but hold on a second. I just wanna give an example, so I think there's a recreation section, right? That talks about maybe it's conservation, recreation. And
Yeah.
and maybe it's conservation, and there's usually like a list of high priority, low priority, maybe, you know, dreamland, will ever get this done. And you look at those top 3 priorities and you're gonna have a meeting with Pat or her committee and say, hey, I just wanna check in on how you're doing with the comp plan. And point out to you that these are like priorities, maybe it's on your radar, maybe it's not. Or
Yeah.
maybe there's no recreation committee, maybe it's just the recreation department. So you're gonna meet with the head of the recreation department and say, hey, I just wanna remind you in the comp plan, we need a skate park, that's like the #1 priority, what are you doing about that? Or, hey, we have an ice skating rink, we have a ski, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah,
And that's how I would see it,
yeah,
kinda, move it along.
no, that's helpful, guys.
Okay, Brad, what do you have to say? You're here all night, what is it?
You folks have covered a lot, which is great. I'm glad you're having this conversation. I didn't mean to contradict you, Paul, but if you look at the website, it says Comprehensive Plan Committee. If I had known we had a implementation committee, then I would have been writing the letters that I've been writing about. The fact that you need to form them. They probably aren't even word, but they're out there. In any event, I think that it's the whole idea of having an implementation committee is critically important. The town council in particular has been talking about the charter, it's talking about schools, procedures, which are all very important. The comprehensive plan is the only document we have that was put together by the residents of the town. It's 200 pages long. It's never been amended before, this is the first time. that one has been amended. And, part of what you bring up, Maya, if you were, I printed this out, the 160-year comprehensive plan, page 160 talks about the implementation plan. It makes it really clear. The things you should be doing, in previous letters I quoted from Arthur's. Just one quick sentence, it says the primary implementation groups will be the town council, the planning board, and the comprehensive plan implementation committee. So when I think about the implementation committee, unfortunately, it should have been formed back in January. I think at that time, it could have worked to prioritize things that, the technical things that the board was working on, but bringing them into focus of the policy statements that are in the plan. The future land use plan, there's a map. And then in the text, all you have is some text describing the boundaries in the map. But I know you have extensive thinking behind how you got there. But we don't have a place where you justify your reasoning for doing this. And this is my concern, is the comprehensive plan allows you a place to do that. It can be in the land use section we talked about. We talked about form-based zoning and streetscapes. For instance, if you're trying to make a determination of where that the extent of the growth area should be. And you know that where it ends, and if it ends where the town, part of the town is still in water and sewer, there are gonna be changes there. I mean, a lot of the zoning lines have been right down the middle of the streets if it's convenient. But the importance of streetscape, you could say in plan, well, strategy that we want is to preserve streetscapes. The goal is to do that. The strategy is that you can apply in different contexts for form-based zoning. You can say either side of the street is in the same zone, somewhere in the back lots is where you've changed it. I guess what I'm trying to point out is that the planning board has been doing a lot of work that makes sense, but I think these things all have to be interconnected. It has to be able to work in the context of the comprehensive plan. You need to be able to reason it for the future land use plan and map. And the real reason I suggest doing it is we're not all going to be here in 10, 15 years. And that document really provides, well, in this room, let's put it that. Doing this work, that's sort of, but the comprehensive plan, more than anything else in town, is where you're not, excuse me, is where your institutional knowledge is repository.
Okay, I'm gonna pause right there. So what I hear you saying is, and you know, we went through workshops and public hearings and we worked really hard at why we thought that was good. You're saying is that we just haven't captured in a narrative why we think this is a better right there and should have made it. And if we wrote something and added that in, that would be better.
It would be a whole.
Okay, that's really reasonable. Yeah, it's fine.
But if you
I'm happy to
specific goals want to do within the land use section, like the streetscapes, you could put it in there and say, and this is our strategy, because then people 10 years down the road go, why, they don't have to go, why did they put this growth zone here, or why they
No, I
did
think
this?
I think that's a great suggestion.
It's there, so.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And hold on, Pat, I can't see you there. Did you have anything you'd like to add since you've been sitting through the meeting? Okay, I just wanna make sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's. I think it's a great opportunity, in the end, I would just like to have one, I have a principle, one of the things I have concern is with current growth area, and I'm not gonna get into it now, is, there's a farm in there that, or it was a farm.
It's for sure.
And, I think there's little pieces of the growth area map that was created that I do think deserve a little more discussion, not like 10 meetings, just a little more discussion, but I think what Brad just suggested and what you just said, Hershey, and for Jeff to just sort of try to synthesize that into something just in that land use section, not like a massive.
I think it would be really easy to.
And I would encourage Maya and the comprehensive plan implementation committee to, at least absorb whatever, to be part of that.
Part of what?
As we move through the next phase of refining the growth area map and the land use section of the plan. I mean, it's really the council basically told the planning board to do that.
I think we need a little bit more onboarding than, I think
Yeah.
attending meetings where there's a map 30 feet away that I can't see. With no handouts that last 2.5 hours. That we're not asked to prepare anything or participate in any meaningful way. It's not that it's not that I'm criticizing it and saying it should have been different, I'm just saying. It's very hard for me to access that.
Yeah.
In a meaningful way, and my other colleague is, raising a young family, so it's like, we gotta come in and get it done and have an agenda. And it's very hard to understand our role, and that's where I'm hoping to have like a clear mandate, a clear goal, cause then I'm good. But in this void, it's difficult.
Okay, I hear.
And
But-
would you think that council owes that to them? Or how, or?
Well, I think,
Jeff, or, how do we get this off top dead center, so to speak, and give a little direction?
are you comfortable?
I would,
With where we're at?
I would say, that, so there's two members of the committee,
Currently.
because Laura is,
And then Brad's joining.
Laura.
Yeah, so if we could have a meeting with just the two members plus me to start, and then
Yeah.
hopefully a third member comes on board. And then have more of a
Yeah.
formal meeting where you can outline what you want to work on.
I do think it's more important, Maya, that you guys be on board. After the growth area map has been completed, and I just think it was just, bad for background, but I do think it's more important that you guys be a bit, on board. After we approve the growth, yes, you're the implementation committee, I mean, that. and
So let that happen,
Sort of let that
and then-
happen, but yeah,
okay,
I mean, that would be my suggestion, but.
I suggest that you probably contact the people that were on that comp plan committee. And especially those that may have worked in the land use section.
Yeah.
And ask them if they've enjoyed the implementation thing.
I think they covered it from the comp plan by now, so. Maybe.
So just to try and summarize action items, so. What we have already is the proposed growth area plus the text changes to the description of the growth area. Add to that, a kind of within the land use section, a call out about, a narrative call out about 1829, why we're doing this change. And then, just allow me to, based on what your input, come up with text to address the cottontail, comments.
That would be really great.
Protect the monies.
I really think our first thing is let's get this out of the way. We've worked a long time,
Yeah.
this is the town council wants to weigh in.
And then bring it to planning board and then to council over the next 1 to 2 months.
Yeah, that'd be great, let's just get that done. That'd be good, and we're meeting tomorrow, so I can, since you probably don't know all the reasoning behind the growth there, we can have a chat, okay, what that looks like.
That sounds great.
What is it, what's up?
And. At the public hearing, and the notes from the public hearing that were posted on the town's website. Made it pretty clear that the sewer district wanted to be involved if you remove any of the growth area boundaries. And they said it was really necessary for them to be callous to ensure that they have the infrastructure. And allow for growth in the areas that we're suggesting. And so I don't know how you involve the sewer district, but clearly it needs to be done. And this is a side issue, and people have pointed out that there's a problem up in Academy Street. And I don't know what the sewer district plans to do about that, and whether the increase septics that would come from the growth areas south on 236 might have an effect on it, and I think that's a real critical reason for having them analyze it.
Right, I'm under the impression that DeCarlo was a good communicator with both water and sewer around. What's been going on, I mean, it's not like the sewer district doesn't know. There's a growth area in town already, and that a lot of it is related to water and sewer where it is. And also that at some point, there will be a capacity and we'll need to. Work on that, the academy stuff is, that's an engineering issue as far as I understand, that's just an
Well,
issue, they have a. some, maybe their pipe needs to be enlarged, but that's not a issue, I think, related to this. That's
Not actually in the growth area.
well, it's not the one we're proposing anyway,
right.
we left them out of it, but they're, like, it has to do with, if they're on the hill, I think, yeah, it's. Look, yeah, it's not, yeah, it's not a good example of what could happen anywhere kind of solid, but.
Right, I think that they're aware, no, thoroughly aware of the growth area maps now, but they want to be involved in when you start to change the growth area map to ensure. It's the changing that they want to feel, they make, well, it's on the town's website, so I'm here to just quote that. It's so much that, you know, they said that they have capacity present, yet they're, that it's important for them to be able to do calculations. When there's decisions made on where you want to change the boundaries of those areas.
Right, so I'll channel to Carlo for 1 second. The planning board hears applications and we get to approve them or not based on the ordinance we have. Applicants have to go to water and sewer and get a letter saying that there is capacity for their project, and that is sort of slightly out of our hands and not in our jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So, and that process remains in place and always will be, as far as I understand, and it's great to plan ahead, and it's not like they're welcome to come and be involved, and we will reach out to them, but remember, that's how it works, right? We see applications, we expect a letter from fire, from police. Some towns ask you about school capacity, there's all sorts of places where, when it goes through that process, but it's not us who gets to say or doesn't say there's sewer capacity or not.
That's correct.
They get a letter.
And you're absolutely correct there, but they're talking about future land use map, and they're saying they wanna be involved where those rebound.
Are they saying that to you? Is that where
It's quoted in the town website,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
in that individual from the sewer district that's here talked about it, that's where the quote comes from.
And I have a scheduled meeting with Ryan Lynch on
Great.
Thursday. Want to talk water first because of that and because of the Punkintown water study.
Yep.
And then it's on my list to get in touch with the sewer.
You could do
Yeah,
that.
I mean, he submitted, he gave us something tonight, and,
Yeah.
right. I mean, they've only been adding 15 customers a year, which is nothing, which is really. But, you know, based on LD 1829, I mean, they could get 400 customers in a year. Yeah, basically, so I, you know, I don't know, I mean, I think that how you're gonna get together with them. Do we? Let's see, it's 7:30, I don't know what else we had going, did we wanna talk about economic development quickly, or do we wanna, no?
Discuss planning
Oh, okay.
and questions.
Okay, I have at least one more planning topic to get your input and direction at, but I'll also defer to you guys right now in case you wanna bring something up. That's kind of not to your time or.
We just go over that, like what. Your slide that had the two different approaches, and then there was one sort of approach that you mentioned that was three Ps. You mentioned something about like technical changes, then the map comp plan amendment, and then more detailed ordinance changes. I just wanna make sure I captured, I want to make sure I captured. I feel like you said something that was slightly different than that, it was sort of like based on conversations we were having. But maybe I'm wrong.
Sam, I have to go, but should I give this back?
No, you can have that. yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think we're kind of in the middle of these two where
Yeah.
it's gonna take a little bit longer, because we'll wanna add that.
Thanks, guys, for being here, appreciate it.
Add that narrative tax rate at 1829. I'll work with SPDC to see if they can type something on. I'll work on the cottontail strategies and then bring it back to the planning board of town council. And I'll update the state that we're making so many changes. And somewhere in there, we'll go back to the state with that.
I think it would be beneficial at the next meeting to put sort of that approach in front of the council, just if we're not all here to gather consensus, just so everyone there on the same page.
Yeah.
Feel about that.
Yeah, no, I think just a memo, something, a memo from Jeff, saying here's the, we're having workshop, here's our proposed, you know, path forward.
Okay, we'll get that to
Yeah.
Jeff.
And is it your impression, if with minor modifications to the growth area map based on the comments they gave. Do we need another do you think we need another public hearing on that?
Only if we revise. If we,
Right, but
we're
even,
done, and we made our suggestion, and I think we had our public hearing about it, right? And in fact,
well, we had a joint public. hearing.
we had a joint public hearing, so if you Paul want something changed, that's fine. Send it back to us, we'll talk about it. And then, we'll have to have another public hearing, I assume, before it goes to our council for.
It's always sort of like, by changing a parcel, does that demand another public hearing?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
And what's the de minimis threshold there, you know?
Yeah, right,
Take
exactly.
One block over versus,
I mean,
you know,
or it's substantive change,
Yeah.
you know,
A little bit different in Elliott, because we're meeting select board and there, but, we had the public hearing and then, everything had to be lined up for the June election, so it's more of a rush. And, my reading of the statute and then talking with the state, I didn't think we needed to have another public hearing after some late breaking changes we made based on responding to state consistency. But I don't think we need another public hearing here, but I can check with Tom Morelli, just to make sure, because he's kind of the expert in these things.
right,
That's fine.
let's go.
Or we could just not change it, Paul.
Well, I could get outvoted, right? That is a legitimate chance.
Yes, percent.
The narrative, and the narrative, right. So you had, and I have an item that Sam and I had, brought up at the last council meeting, which I just want to bring up to everyone here. Go ahead.
So I'll stay away from the economic development topics, thank you for clarifying that. Pumpkin Town small area planning, this is something I've thought a lot about, I've talked with Tim about it. It's our growth area, even with the proposed revised, it's our growth area. We have, one established building with businesses in there, a new sign going up. There's a signal coming to the intersection. There's another parcel that's before the planning board right now for review. There's another parcel where the developer has expressed interest for the development there. So, the water study is done, at least in draft form. Talking with DeCarlo, that was the most important for him, was the water study, making sure that the water is sort of development. I haven't finished reading the water study yet, but it seems to show that there is water at Boston Shores for the infrastructure. To me, what's important now is that we move forward with small area planning. This is something that Carl brought up in the past. I think it's important, I would want to get direction on being able to publish an RFP, begin selecting the process of selecting a consultant to do small area planning. Who can make recommendations on layout, what's the proper organization of development in this growth area? What infrastructure is needed in terms of streets, pathways, water and sewer infrastructure. That can recommend a reasonable kind of sharing of costs between the TIF and private development. And that can do any other number of things to kind of organize the vision for this growth area. Because we have a new TIF, we have an old TIF, there's the Pompano TIF has crossed the halfway point, 14 years now. And the Pumpkin Town area is at the confluence of the two TIFs. Green Foundry just got added, or is in the process of being added. And so, unless I'm missing something, there's also the zoning issue too, of course, the I-1 versus I-2. So, in the small area planning process, can make recommendations on that. So unless I'm missing anything, I feel like this is the next step for the Pumpkin Town area.
Or, I'm sorry, I need to sound really stupid, but I'm going to, thank God I'm not on the figure, but, are you not capable of doing that, or is it a capacity?
Capacity issue.
Okay, fine, just wanted to make sure. I hear you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great, personally, and so I feel like a voice in the bullets on this, but I keep bringing up impact fees, and, you know, we had a massive study done. And this stuff all is gonna cost a lot of money. The study was really good, I think they're supposed to come back.
Yeah, I've got a slide for that.
Where's for the, your name plate, I goes.
Anyway, I don't know, but in any case, I am like intrigued with the idea of trying to implement impact fees, because I think with what we're talking about, I think they're residential base, but anyway, you know, I keep bringing it up, I just wanna have that on our, so,
Well, the good news is we have a good draft study.
yeah.
Jen and I checked in with the consultant the other day about it. He's very excited about the study. The study recommends fee levels, which is very important. The key is to, where is that impact? The key is to, is that the legislature, again, here comes the legislature, they've closed the window a little bit on flexibility of impact fees. So, really what's driving this impact fees is what are the growth related capital needs in the next 5 to 10 years? Because you can only use impact fees, Paul, you know all this, others know all this, but you can only use your impact fees on specific statutory topics. There's about 7 or 8 of them. You cannot use impact fees to correct existing deficiencies. And the revenue collect has to be prorated and reasonably related to the additional impact of the specific development. Who you are assessing the fees. And then the legislature, and I wrote a comment to the legislature, you know, pushing back on some of the stuff they were proposing. But what got in there was, must encumber within 360 days, which is a big, well, that's a big one. So you really have to, once you set the impact fees, you really have to know what your capital improvements plan outlines. And you have to collect those fees and you really have to be ready to spend them, hit above the door, or at least cover them in 360 days. So it's a narrow window, but it's an important tool.
Yeah.
So the study, what the study doesn't do is actually write the ordinance. So it would be on us to write the ordinance, but it is something that over the next year we can begin to do.
And Jeff, not to put you on the spot, but you know, despite the fact that you staff us, we're not really your boss, right? We're not, and neither is really, you know, town council either. And so, you know, you have a lot on your plate. And you're a smart guy, I'm gonna trust you to work out how you prioritize all these many projects, committees, studies. I mean, I was always overwhelmed when DeCarlo went through everything he worked on. It's like he was Superman. It's like he never slept, or he was incredibly productive, and
I'm feeling that right now.
I'm sure you are, and I also think you should feel free, I mean, this is just as sort of my point of view, you should feel free to say, this is something that's just gonna have to wait, and we have priorities, we have some deadlines, and you know, I feel like it's not my job to tell you how to work that out, that's, you and Jen should do that and not me, or us, so I just, you know, I have a lot of faith in you.
Well, I mean, the glory of some of this is that we have the TIF funds, which, you know, for that area study you were just talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. She said wanted to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a blessing.
Yes, no, it's the funds are, I think a lot of people don't understand them, and know we have them, and know that we fund positions through that even, and also there's, the TIF funds also have in the paperwork, so they're supposed to be used for, I think that's really important, so yes, that's good news. So,
You still have one more person to hire for yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, which is.
And Brittany starts on Monday.
Yeah,
Brittany Spencer's not on that.
the only. At the risk of your head exploding, yeah. We did bring up the idea of a data center,
Oh, right,
yeah.
at the end of the last council meeting. I don't know what's involved with that, I'm just hoping it's sort of a quick, like, one-off, you know, ordinance, you know, proposal. That, you know, without But of course, we need to actually write an ordinance for a data center.
So Paul,
Whatever,
I'm under the impression when you put a moratorium in place, it starts the clock ticking.
yes,
So if we don't do anything, we don't have, but then again, you know, we want a moratorium probably.
Right.
If we
So
get the
we-
clock ticks, we'll have to just live with that. For example,
Might not need to write one from scratch. I've seen on the map listserv, Maine Association of Planners, some planners sharing some of their.
or there moratorium or an actual order.
I think at least one was sharing, I'll have to check on that, sharing from our.
I can let you know that, the moratorium, like, review, put something together for us to review, has been sent to legal already. Jen's working.
well, and
There you
also,
go.
I'll just remind everybody, we, when solar came in over by, the marshland by where 91 and 236 meet. I think we put a moratorium in place for that because suddenly we had 2 or 3 applicants, and it turns out. Really, it was the capacity of the transformer regionally that determined how many solar farms we would ever have. And that the next solar farm would have to pay $6 million of their own money to upgrade, and we just thought that was unlikely. So though we did tweak our ordinance and put in solar as a use and decide how to deal with it, it turned out it was somewhat moot. So, I'm just saying there might be other things around this that don't call for a lot of tweaking, that it's. They need a certain amount of water we can't provide, they need a certain amount of land, or they're not viable, so, yeah, it's, you know. They're interesting, okay. Okay, cool.
So you mentioned it in the meeting and jump right on.
Well, it's already done, it's done. All right,
Anything else you guys wanna review today? According to our planning board. No? Excellent.
Very good.
All right.
Good.
We'll adjourn this meeting. I hope everyone has a